What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm going to start doing every week. We're going to talk about the election, the presidential election, and we'll look at some of the other races. But I want to do this because first off, I told you guys I was going to do it. And I love looking at the polls and then taking a look at some of the issues that will impact this election in November. So that's what we're going to look at in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we post a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification and clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. And just a reminder, thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter and Threads, you can at the TEC Show Live. Okay, so before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about the reason why it's important for us to be paying attention, especially paying attention to the presidential race. Now, I've said this before, and I talk a lot about retirement on this channel. I talk a lot about Social Security on this channel. One thing that we know is Social Security needs to be reformed, and they only have about 9 years to do it. And so what does that mean? Every presidential cycle, it's imperative that we have the right people in place. Okay, so presidents as well as people in Congress, because we're going to see Congress move forward with some type of reform. They have to move forward with some type of reform in the next 9 years. And so that's only 2 presidential cycles. Okay, so I'm just trying to get you guys to understand this is very important that we know what's going on when it comes to the different people who are running for office and how they fare and how they feel about certain issues like Social Security, like Medicare, and like some of the other issues that are out there. Now, I will say this: presidents don't legislate. Congress they're the legislators, so they're going to create a bill. So if it's for Social Security reform, they're going to create the bill, they're going to pass it, and then it will go to the president for his final signature. But the president plays a role in a sense where he or she can say, look, this is what I want you guys to pass. So the White House can create the framework for legislation, but Congress is going to have to pass it first. So let's go ahead. I want to take a look at some of these different races. Now, what you're looking at now is I have Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. Now, why are we looking at these states and these states only? Well, the main reason we're looking at these states only is because presidents don't get elected by popular vote. They have to win states, and then they win the electoral votes in those states, and that's how they become president. And so it's important for us to look at some of these battleground states, because certain states we already know how they're going to go. We know California, Biden will win California. We know Biden will win New York. We know some other states like in the South, Louisiana is going to go to Trump. Texas most likely will go to Trump. Florida most likely will go to Trump. So we know there's some states that are just, they're going to go towards a Democrat or a Republican. We already know that. But we have these swing states, these battleground states that we don't know exactly how they're going to go. And so that's why they're very important. That's why you have these politicians out in these different states. You have President Biden, you have former President Trump going to certain states because these are the battleground states. These are the states they need to win in order to win enough electoral votes to become president. Okay, so first one I want to look at Arizona. Okay, now looking at these polls and just doing an overall view of it, just so you guys can see kind of the big picture here. Trump is leading in all of the polls that we're showing here, okay? He's leading in all the polls, but I will say, and I'll say this at the very end, I don't think that will continue, and I'll show you why. Okay, so looking at Arizona, and I'm just going to look over a few. Now, what's important to know is Trump might be leading in the polls, but a lot of these polls are within the margin of error. Okay, so if they're within the margin of error, realistically, it's a tie. And just to give you an example here, the Wall Street Journal, they're showing that the poll was done on between 317 and 324. Registered voters, 600 registered voters, that's who they polled. Now, the results, and this is the margin of error here. The margin of error is 4, okay, 4 percentage points. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at Trump at 47. We're looking at Biden at 42. And so if you look at the margin of error, let's say the margin of error is off 4 points for 4 more points for Biden. Let's just say that. So instead of 42, you're looking at 46, and Trump stays the same at 47. You see where it can be closer. Now, that could go the other way, right? Because it could be 4 more points for Trump, which would give him 51 and compared to 42. So it could be even a larger margin or a closer margin. So we don't know because that margin of error kind of, it skews things. Okay, so, but just looking at this and not taking in consideration the margin of error, you have Trump ahead by 5 points. And then you have the Hill Emerson poll here, 1,000 registered voters, margin of error is 3.0. You have 52% for Trump and 48% for Biden. And that gives Trump 4%. And then Bloomberg, 796 registered voters. And we have margin of error of 3%, 48% for Trump, and 43% for Biden. And then Fox, that was done on 3/7 to 3/11. That's 1,121 registered voters, 3% margin of error, 49% for Trump, 45% for Biden. Okay. So, and I'm not going to go over every one, but I just want to kind of give you a snapshot of what's going on here. Then at the top here, I want to focus on this for 1 second. This is an average. So what Real Clear Politics does, and they do a really good job of this, is they'll just average everything out. So when you're looking at all these different polls, you're wondering, okay, some are high, some are down, some are lower. And so what's the average of all of the polls? So the average of all the polls is a plus 5.2 for Trump. Okay. Now this is Arizona. This is the state of Arizona that we're looking at. All right, let's move forward and we'll look at Nevada. And so in Nevada, the Wall Street Journal poll, 317 and 324, 600 registered voters, 4% margin of error, 48% Trump, 44% Biden. The Hill Emerson poll was done on March 12th through March 15th. We have 1,000 registered voters, 3% margin of error. We have 51 Trump, 49 Biden. So you can see how really close these races are. Bloomberg, and that was done on March 8th through March 15th. 447. Now you see that 447 registered voters, not very many, okay, not a big sample. And the margin of error here was 4%. We saw Trump at 46. We see Biden at 44. Okay, so this is within the margin of error. So it doesn't really, it could go either way. Same thing with the Emerson poll that we showed up right above that, the 51-49, within that margin of error, as well as the Wall Street Journal poll that's within the margin of error as well. So just kind of giving you guys showing you guys what's going on here. And so now looking at the Real Clear Politics average, their average is plus 3.2 for Trump. Okay, so that's Nevada. All right, looking at Wisconsin. So Wisconsin, Wall Street Journal poll, 317, 324. So this is all the same, right? 600 registered voters, margin of error, 4%, 46 for Trump, 46 for Biden. So you see this right here. This is a tie. That's what Wall Street Journal is showing there. And so it looks like Biden is doing better in Wisconsin. Okay, the Hill Emerson poll, 1,000 registered voters, margin of error 3%, 52% for Trump, 48% for Biden. That is just out of the margin of error, but we have Trump at +4 there. And then we have the Bloomberg poll, and that was done on March 8th through March 14th, 697 registered voters. We see a 4% margin of error. We have Trump at 45, Biden at 46, within the margin of error, but Biden is leading in this poll. Okay, so, but it's still within the margin of error, so it could go either way. And then we'll do this last poll here, Fox, and that was done on January 26th to January 30th. That's 1,172 registered voters at 3% margin of error, 47 Trump, 47 Biden. So that's a tie there. Okay. Now I want to look at the latest polls because I want to see what the differences are. And so that's why we don't need to look at the very last one. But I do want to look at the average, the overall average. So the overall average, Real Clear Politics average, is plus 0.6%, and that is in Wisconsin. Okay, so Biden is faring much better in Wisconsin compared to the other states that we looked at. Okay, let's look at Michigan. We're looking at Michigan, Washington Journal. It was done on the same day, March 17th through the 24th. 600 registered voters, margin of error 4%, 48 Trump, 45 Biden. And so that's within that margin of error. The Hill Emerson poll, 1,000 registered voters, margin of error 3%. We have 50-50, so we have a tie there in Michigan. Okay, I want to look at some of the more popular polls. CNN poll here, 1,097 registered voters, margin of error is 3.6. We have 50 for Trump and 42% for Biden. Okay, so Trump has a clear lead there at 8 points. Bloomberg poll here, that was done on March 8th through March 12th, 698 registered voters, 4% margin of error, 45-45, dead heat. Okay, so looking at the overall average, Real Clear Politics average here is plus 3.4%. All right, I have two more states to look at, and we're going to be looking at these every week. I'll take a look at some of these different polls in these states because these are the battleground states. These are the states that everyone's going to be focused on, and they will determine who becomes the next president. Okay, Pennsylvania. So looking at Pennsylvania, Wall Street Journal poll here done on March 17th through March 24th. 600 registered voters, 4% margin of error, 47-44. So that's within the margin of error there. So Trump is plus 3. And then CNN poll done on March 13th to March 18th, 1,132 registered voters, 3.8% margin of error, 46-46. So it's a dead heat. And then we'll look at Bloomberg. Bloomberg on March 8th through March 12th, 807 registered voters, 3% margin of error, 45-45, dead heat tie. Okay, so just looking at the Real Clear Politics at the top here, the overall is plus 0.6, and that's for Trump. Okay, North Carolina, another battleground state here. Wall Street Journal on March 17th through March 24th, 600 registered voters, 4% margin of error, 49-43. Okay, so that's over the margin of error for Trump here, and that is plus 6. The Marist poll, we're looking, and that was done on March 11th through March 14th. That's 1,197 registered voters, 3.6%. Margin of error, 51-48. That is within that margin of error, so it's pretty much a toss-up there. And Bloomberg on March 8th through March 12th, 699 registered voters, 4% margin of error, 49-43. That's outside the margin of errors, and Trump is ahead by plus 6. And so looking at the Real Clear Politics average, Trump is up plus 4.6 overall, okay? Now, what I want to take a look at, and this is really important to take a look at because we're seeing a convergence here, okay? So if you're looking at this and you go back 2023, April, July, October, and then 2024. So you're looking at the bottom there. Now, just we can see what's happening here. So back then, you had Biden leading in most of the polls. And then he dipped below, and then he came back up here, and then he dipped below, and then he stayed down here. Then he went up, and we're just looking at the blue line here. And then he dipped down here, and then you see the separation here. You see the separation. Now what we're seeing is it's converging, okay? So you see in some of the latest polls, and this, just so you guys understand how tight this is, we're talking about 1 percentage point, okay? Now, to be fair, this is a overall national poll. I don't like to use national polls, but I do like to look at national polls just to see if we're seeing any difference overall as far as are the numbers changing overall. And we are seeing that. Like I said, it's converging here. And so you see Biden is in blue, Trump is in red, you see that Biden is starting to move up and Trump is moving down. Okay. So at some point, and I would say, and this is just my prediction, by the summer, we're going to see this dead heat. We're going to see a convergence. Okay. And we'll probably see Biden shoot up. And I'm going to explain to you the reasons why I think that will happen. So if we go down, and then you can see here just the volume, you see that Trump has been really getting a lot of, he's been moving up a lot, okay? You just see it here. You see the volume here. And then you see the volume for Biden here, he was doing well. And then the volume here, he was doing well, okay? But as of late, we're seeing Trump doing better, but then we need to look at these last indicators here. You see how it came up here and then it's starting to go down, okay? So what do we need to be looking at? These are some of the things that are going to determine who the next president is, okay? And so I just want to go over these briefly, and then, so just looking at Trump's court cases, that's going to be an issue, right? Ballot initiatives, that's also going to be an issue. The economy, immigration, inflation. Now, you notice I separated the economy and inflation. I'll talk about why I did that. And then crime. Okay, so those are the real big issues that people are focused on. Let's just, I want to go through, look at crime. Now, when it comes to crime is actually down. Violent crime is down. However, it is more of a perception. How do you feel about it? How do you feel about crime? And so we'll have to see how that plays a role in the presidential race. How do people feel? Do people feel safe? Because you might be safer, but do you feel safer? Okay, so it's hard. It's really hard to figure that out because we don't know. Like, some people might feel safe. Some people might not feel safe. It might depend on where they're living, a variety of different issues, what they're seeing on TV, all of that. Okay. All right. Inflation. Now, the reason that I separated inflation and the economy is because, and we'll talk about them both at the same time, the economy is doing well. Okay. Our economy's, we're doing okay. We're not in a recession. Actually inflation and everything is going down. However, this is another situation where perception plays a role because you might not feel like you might see inflation going down. And every month I give you guys a CPI score and I talk a little bit about the food prices and all of that. You might see that on paper, but you're not really feeling it. Or you're seeing, when you watch the news, you're seeing that prices are going up at restaurants and prices are going up here and all this stuff. And so even though prices might not be as high as you think they are, the perception is that they're much higher. The perception is that things are much more expensive than they were. And in many cases, I mean, you go to the grocery store, yes, prices are more expensive. I mean, things are more expensive. That's just bottom line. Okay, even though you have the CEO of Walmart saying they're going to drop prices, grocery prices, and things like that, we're not feeling it yet. We're not seeing it yet. So when we start to see that, hopefully we'll start to see that. When that happens, then maybe people will have a better perception when it comes to inflation overall. But right now, I would say the perception, the vast majority of people are looking at this and saying prices are too high. They're just too high. Okay. Now, when it comes to the economy, I'll skip immigration and come right back to it. But when it comes to the economy is doing well, like I said. And because the economy is doing well, that's why we haven't fallen into a recession. And that could have a major impact. So if the economy starts to tank, then that will definitely impact our election. Okay. So just something to note there. When it comes to immigration, there's still a fight when it comes to immigration reform and just, different things, safety when it comes to immigration. So we're going to have to see what they do in the future. There was a bill that they were trying to pass through the Senate. It was a bipartisan bill, but they weren't able to pass it. And part of the reason, or the main reason they weren't able to pass it, is because former President Trump said he didn't want them to pass it because he wants that issue to run on. Okay, so we're going to have to see if that has an impact. Are people tuned into that? Are they paying attention to the fact that former President Trump said, no, we don't want a reform for immigration right now. We don't want to fix what's going on at the border because we can run on that. Will people penalize him for that? Okay, so let's move forward. And ballot initiatives. This is important. And I kind of put these in the order of importance. So at the very top, this is probably the most important. These are the most important things that will impact. Now, understand this. What I'm saying is these things will impact the presidential race. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're the most important issues. I'm just saying when it comes to what will impact, what will swing people from one, voting for former President Trump to voting for Biden or vice versa, that's what I'm talking about here. Ballot initiatives in Florida, they have the 6-week ban on abortion. That will be up. That'll be a ballot initiative. That's going to bring people out to vote. That could impact our presidential, or will impact our presidential race, because you're going to have these people coming to vote for this ballot initiative, and they're probably going to vote for president as well as on down the list. And so this could benefit President Biden, because Florida is right now it's leaning towards Trump, but it could be more of a battleground state if we see an influx of people going to the polls to vote on this ballot initiative and then also voting for President Biden. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is Trump's court cases. This is something that we're going to see this, and we've never seen this before. So it's hard to figure out how this is going to go when it comes to, will this benefit former President Trump, or will this actually hurt former President Trump? In my opinion, right now, just looking at the way things are going, it's probably going to hurt him more than it helps. Because look, when it comes to former President Trump, he has core supporters. They're going to vote for him no matter what. But then we also have the middle of the road people, the people that could vote for former President Trump, or they say, you know what, he's too much. We're not going to vote for him. We're going to vote for President Biden, or we're going to vote for another candidate. Okay, so third-party candidate. And so these court cases, they're going to impact, when it comes to some people, how they vote. They're going to look at these cases. And if he's found guilty of a felony charge in this New York case, then he'll be a felon. And some people might look at that and say, you know what, I'm not going to vote for former President Trump because he is now a felon. So that's something to consider as well. Okay. Now, the other cases, we'll have to see if they start before the election. I think they have, at least the Georgia case is slated to start before the election. So we might see him going through that court process. We might not see the verdict before the election, but at least it will have started, and that case will be televised, so we'll be able to see what's going on in the courtroom. So that'll be different. The New York case, we're not going to be able to see what's in the courtroom, but I will be following it. Okay, so I will be following that case, doing some live streams, talking a little bit about what's going on in the courtroom, but we're not going to be able to physically see it. But that, I think, when it comes to Trump's court cases, that's going to have a major impact on this election. And so we'll just have to see if it's going to be positive for former President Trump or negative for former President Trump. Because let's face it, if he wins, let's say he wins the New York case, that would probably have a positive effect, right? Because people say, look, I told you. And so that could help boost former President Trump. But if he's found guilty, and especially if he's found guilty of a felony, well, that will change things when it comes to how some people vote. So I want to know what you guys think about all this. Every week, like I said, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about what's going on when it comes to the election of 2024. If you guys have any questions, post them down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one.